we had good news today on the economy and how it's grown and new homes are doing better as well. But for some reason, Biden's messaging on the economy just isn't breaking through. Inflation is probably still too high, so people still feel that in their wallets whenever they go to the supermarket. So that's a big thing, obviously, that people see. How does it affect me on a day-to-day basis? And then obviously the other biggie is immigration. And Biden finally seems to have admitted that, yes, there is an issue of immigration, but it feels like that whole administration's just been too head in the sand for the last 2.5, 3 years. And the chickens might be kind of coming home to roost for him on that one.
Welcome to The Debrief, where we talk with the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the headlines they're covering and where the story's going next. I'm Sarah Bedford, and I'm here with Managing Editor Chris Irvine.
Hi.
And Chris, this past week we had the New Hampshire primaries. Week before that we had the Iowa caucuses. The Iowa caucuses looked like we were heading towards a coronation for Donald Trump, and New Hampshire a little bit less so. Do you think we're going to see Trump put it away soon, or are we due for a few more months of a slog?
Oh gosh, I think Trump should put it away soon, and I think you can kind of see in his language recently where he's quite aggressively calling on Nikki Haley to drop out. That as far as he's concerned, and as far as I think I'm concerned, and a lot of others are, that this is pretty much a formality, and it sort of reminds me of the last stage of the Tour de France when the cyclist just cycles through Paris with a glass of champagne, even though it's technically, the race is still technically there. I think Haley's performance in New Hampshire is a bit of a mirage when you factor in the Democrats and the independent voters who voted for her. And I don't see anything in the polls to suggest that she's going to mount much of a comeback there. I know she's kind of trying to pull the Bill Clinton comeback kid playbook a little bit there, but I think it's really wishful thinking. And the fact that everybody in the Republican Party, or mostly everybody, is now parroting the line of, let's get behind Donald Trump because he's going to be the nominee, I think the writing's very much on the wall there. And yeah, you know, it's just, Haley's probably going to have to accept that sooner rather than later.
Right, at some point.
Yeah.
When or if Donald Trump becomes the nominee, he'll face a pretty weak Joe Biden in the general election. What are some of the reasons why Joe Biden is just pulling so low with people?
Well, I think we're going to take a look at it next week ahead of Biden in the Democratic primary in South Carolina, which is really sort of is the first official time he's going to be on the ballot. He was a write-in candidate in New Hampshire, and he won that pretty comfortably in the end. And I'm sure, look, he'll win obviously South Carolina, but I think South Carolina is a good reminder that 4 years ago, Biden looked a little bit sort of dead in the water, and then Jim Clyburn came to the rescue and helped deliver South Carolina for him, which gets into a wider discussion about Joe Biden, the voters, the black voters and Latino voters who have backed Biden in the past, but we're maybe seeing some indications that they're not too happy with how that's going. Now, you never want to obviously approach either demographic as a monolith, and but there's some indications there that the Democrats might not have that kind of in lockdown like you'd expect. And we're also going to take a closer look at, you know, how he's performing on the economy. We had good news today on the economy and how it's grown and new homes are doing better as well. But for some reason, Biden's messaging on the economy just isn't breaking through. Inflation is probably still too high, so people still feel that in their wallets whenever they go to the supermarket. So that's a big thing, obviously, that people see. How does it affect me on a day-to-day basis? And then obviously the other biggie is immigration. And Biden finally seems to have admitted that, yes, there is an issue of immigration, but it feels like that whole administration's just been too head in the sand for the last 2.5, 3 years, and the chickens might be kind of coming home to roost for him on that one.
If you're Joe Biden's re-election campaign manager and you're in charge of fixing his sort of slide with people, what do you tell him to do differently to change the dynamic, to address his age concerns on immigration? I mean, what does he need to do?
Sure, I think it's a tricky one because you can't exactly hide the fact that he's 81, and that when they did have the luxury of COVID last time, that they could use the basement strategy, and I think they'll have to do that to an extent. I think he has to go on offense. I do think that the economic message sooner rather than later probably will break through. as that stuff starts to ease a little bit and we get closer and closer to the election. But he has to just continue drawing himself in comparison to Trump. Trump also is an older candidate. He also is sometimes showing signs of not being at all with it cognitively. And he has to kind of hammer home what Trump did in his 4 years and how going backwards isn't necessarily the right step for America. And he just has to hammer home that message. I think he's being constantly focusing on MAGA Republicans could backfire, but if you focus on Trump the man and Trump the politician, then Biden and his surrogates, whoever they may be, if it's Kamala or if it's Gavin Newsom or Gretchen Whitmer, they might be able to kind of break through there. So I guess it's partly, stay the course on the economy, but also let's get a bit more aggressive and go on offense against the entity that is Donald Trump.
Well, hopefully you don't leave to go manage the campaign when he sees this. And he's like, great advice. Chris, thank you so much for being here today. You can get more writing from Chris and the rest of the political team at washingtonexaminer.com.